Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today's episode is The Doors.
Welcome to the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast with Scott Whitwam, your blueprint to financial abundance. Settle in as we explore the mindset and methods for wealth building through real estate.
Welcome back. I'm Scott Whitwam, and today we'll be talking about The Doors. No, I'm not talking about Jim Morrison on this episode with the rock band that made its debut in 1967 and produced hits like Break On Through and Light My Fire. Though it would probably be a great podcast if I did talk about the Doors and all of the music that they made. But we're going to be talking about doors and the impact they have on value as an investor. This episode was inspired by a recent conversation I had with a client about this very subject, doors. And, many times I put hours into preparing for doing a podcast. And this one was, what in the world am I going to talk about for 15 minutes that will have a meaningful impact on people regarding doors? But the conversation that I had with the client was very interesting. So let's just start with, first off with why doors matter. As a real estate agent, and I've been doing this now, for decades, I'm surprised at how much doors matter to a buyer. A lot of times as an investor, we're just kind of looking at how can we minimize our expense in preparing a property. Doesn't matter whether we're flipping the property or whether we're looking at renting the property, or if we're going to do, co-living with the property. We're always looking at, how can we minimize our cost to produce the best product to gain the best value. And we want to produce the best value so it produces the best returns. But after, hundreds and hundreds of homes sold and working with buyers and sellers for, like I said, decades, it's interesting at what you find when you go out and look at houses. A lot of times we're looking at houses that people are flipping. Investors have purchased. They're doing their best to put the house in a condition where they can make the most amount of money on it. And I can tell. I've been doing this long enough. When I walk into a house, if somebody is just doing the old lipstick on a pig routine, where they've spruced it up a little bit. Maybe they, cleaned the carpets. Maybe they had the tile polished. They washed the windows. Maybe they put a new coat of paint on it. But when you start to get up close to it, you see that it's just that. They've just covered things up. And this happens a lot of times with doors because it's amazing. I don't understand this, but you know what? Everybody has a different take. Why anybody would put staples, nail holes, pinholes in a door. On drywall, I can understand. It's very easy to fix. But on doors, it becomes a little bit more difficult. I've seen, acoustical tile. I've seen posters. I've seen draperies, all attached to doors. And the problem is when you get ready to either sell or rent a property, or if you had a tenant that has done this in their property because they wanted to achieve some outcome, either noise reduction or they just wanted to spruce the look of the room up. Now you've got holes inside the doors. And the real interesting thing with this is, what do you do with that? How do you treat that to make it look acceptable to somebody who's either going to buy or rent this house? Now, obviously, the first reaction would be, oh man, the doors just have to be replaced, but that's not always, a requirement. So let's talk about what do we do with doors that don't look good. We could replace them. Doors have gotten pretty expensive. During the big run up we had in 2022 through 2024 in inflation, it added about 30 or 40% to door costs. So do we want to replace doors? Well, that may be an option, but some people I have seen in houses, some people have gone that route and they've replaced doors, and the new doors, they don't match the old doors. And so you go through a house and there's a slight difference in the doors. And oftentimes a buyer may not point out that, hey, those doors don't match. They'll just go, something doesn't look right. Or, why is this look like this? You can't take a flat panel door and put it on a bedroom when all the other doors are 2-panel doors in the house. You can get away with that on a garage door if you want to put a flat panel, maybe garage door. But generally, I don't find, the big door problems being the garage door unless somebody just did something, malicious. But when you're walking through a house, a 4 or 5 bedroom house, and you find, that the doors don't match, it really draws attention to a buyer, and oftentimes will make a buyer go, well, no, I don't. If this is wrong, what else is wrong in the house? So replacing the doors may be an option, but what if the doors don't match? But another option is what about fixing the doors? Now, I know that in our culture or society where we are now, it's not like it was 40 years ago. 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, we actually had craftsmen. We had people who actually would work on things and fix things. We are in a much bigger just replacement economy. If things don't look right, if they're broken, whatever, we just replace them because things are relatively cheap and most people don't have skills. But if you have some skills, I would say the first thing I would look at doing is repairing them. So like if a tenant has taken a door and put nail holes in it or pinholes or staple holes through it, I would recommend that you get on YouTube. I mean, what a great source for learning how to do things like this. Get on YouTube and find out how to refinish a door, because this can make a lot of difference to your bottom line. So if you got little pinholes in it, don't just go and get some spackle or wood putty and just start filling the holes and then paint the door. Because now what you're going to have is you're going to have little bumps that are going to create shadows when you paint the doors, which will become noticeable. Now look, if you're in a low-end rental market, if you've got a low-end house in a low-end area of town, this may not matter. Right? It's not going to matter whether you've got ugly patches in the walls. It doesn't going to matter if your doors have been patched. If you just took a piece of, project board and just glued it on over a hole and then painted it. There's a lot of places where this isn't going to matter. But if you're in an average area of town or in an upper end area of town, this matters quite a bit. But you can watch a video and learn how to do this. But if you take a very high grit sandpaper and sand the door, make your patch and sand that flush and then prime and lightly sand it. Do you know you can go down to a auto body repair store? You won't find this in Home Depot or Lowe's. In Home Depot or Lowe's, you'll find the traditional, 60, 80, 100, 120, 180, 220, maybe even 320 grit sandpaper. Okay, all really good if you're doing some woodwork and you want to put a nice finish, get from rough to fine and make your boards look really good so they can accept stain or paint. But in this case, I recommend going down to the local auto body store where they have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 grit sandpaper. And when you're doing your finish sanding on the pinholes in the door, that you finish it with a very high grit sandpaper, which means that it has a very, very fine sand in it so that it looks smooth. It doesn't leave grooves, it doesn't scratch, it doesn't leave any mars. So when you're sanding it all together, it'll actually blend it together. Prime it, resand it with that, and then prime it again, and then go over it with a coat of paint. You'll get rid of the shadows in the pinholes. You'll get rid of the shadows in the nail holes, your filler. And if you're working on wood doors, go get a good wood filler. Don't just go get a cheap thing of spackle, which shrinks when it dries. It's one of the big problems. And you have to, if you're going to use something like that, I wouldn't use it on a door. Maybe some of the newer particle board doors, it would work okay. But you're going to have to do it multiple times so that you allow it to shrink, sand it, fill it, and then allow it to shrink until you have eliminated the shrink factor in it. But if you use a good wood putty is going to be less shrinkage for you. It's going to sand out. It's going to be smooth. It's going to look good. And then when somebody comes in the home to look at the house, it's got the matched set of doors. The repairs are done properly, and it's going to look like there was it's going to look like there was no repair done at all. It's going to look like the doors were new. If you've sanded the whole doors, repainted the whole doors, properly, they're going to look really good. My recommendation generally when you're fixing doors is take them off their hinges, lay them on sawhorses, and if you have a paint sprayer, spray them with paint. If you have to roll them, just use a very fine roller so that you don't have blobs and big spotches, and that the paint doesn't fill in the grooves of the door. Like if you're doing a 2-panel or a 6-panel type door, you don't want it to fill in there. Obviously, if your doors are solid core wood, same thing. It's very easy. You're not going to have paint to worry about, but you're going to have to stain. The wood putty is a perfect solution. It'll match color, tone, texture. And when you get done, the house will look so much better and show so much better. And so, in this solution, I think that there is a good solution without having to replace all your doors. Also, we got into a conversation about, is it worth it to replace all my doors? Most of the time, when I am doing a whole house remodel and for a flip, we're replacing all the doors. We're going to take out all of the old doors that were in the houses. A lot of these houses are over 20 years old, and they're either flat panel, they're a pattern that's not modern that people are looking for. They're not decorative, and so we're going to come out and take all of the doors out of it. But again, this is about numbers. When you're an investor, this is about numbers, and you have to figure this in when you're going in and you're negotiating and making the deal on it. A lot of the houses we buy, the doors got holes in them, chips. It's a pretty easy decision. But if I'm replacing one door, I'm probably replacing all of them. And we just go through, we buy a door package, and we replace all of the doors. With it. Now, if you've got issues with, maybe a metal front or back door or garage door, it can be a little bit more complicated. They're much more expensive, so maybe it's not worth replacing. And now you may have to become the body and fender guy. With a metal door, maybe now you have to get Bondo, and you do the same process you do with the wood door. You're going to sand it all down. But in this case, you're going to get down to the metal if it's a metal door, and then you're going to watch a video on YouTube on how to utilize Bondo and Bondo hardener and apply it, and knife it in there so that it fills, and then how to sand it. And again, you can buy Bondo at Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace or True Value, any of those places you can buy it. But if you go to an auto body store, you can get not only the Bondo, the hardener, but now you can get the very high grit sandpapers that you're going to want for your finish touches all at the same place. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to fix the doors. So replacing the doors is all about money, but it's also about looks. I'm into fixing things if it's worth it, but generally I'm looking at replacing them. I do the same thing on my rentals. I want people to move into my rentals and say, hey, I want to stay here. I don't want to be here for just a year. The landlord really takes care of this place. He has pride of ownership. I want to stay here for multiple years. You lose money when you're replacing a tenant every year, because now you have vacancy and you got to spread that loss of revenue over the period of your rents. And though you're maybe getting good rent, you're losing out on every time you have to fill a vacancy. You may lose 1 or 2 months while you're trying to get it re-rented. So now the other question that I got asked is, well, do I need to replace the door jambs also? Generally, when we're doing a full remodel, we're buying case doors. We're replacing the door jambs, putting in all new door jambs, so that the jambs and the doors are all brand new. But if you're doing a door replacement, you can also do a jamb fix. Or if you're doing a door repair, you can do a jamb fix. Again, most door jambs are going to be wood. I mean, you can run into metal, but I use the same process for repairing the wood. You sand it down, you fill it properly. You sand it so it's smooth, and then you repaint it, and it will look really nice. You can even fix dents, chips, holes, whatever it is that's in the jambs. If the jambs are too bad, you can buy a door in a case for maybe an extra 20, 30, 40 bucks depending on the door, and it may be worth replacing the door jamb. But I don't go out of my way to replace door jambs because it's more work. And then the question was, do all my doors have to be white? There was this theory that, white doors provide a contrast, and I will say that probably 95% of the homes that we sell, the doors are white, off-white. There's some type of white color. I remember the first time my wife came up with the idea to do a contrasting. She did this light cocoa brown for all of our doors. And I was like, are you kidding me? We're painting the doors brown? When we did it and got done, it looked absolutely fabulous. So sometimes you can create your accents and stuff by changing the colors of the door. Now, if I've got a rental house, I'm probably sticking with white. It's cheapest paint. It's easy to repair. But you know what? If you're doing a custom home or you're flipping or doing something, this may be a good alternative. You can do, blues, greens, browns, whatever is a good contrast that fits the color scheme of your house. Do one and test it and see what it looks like, and see if you like it, see what kind of response you get from other people that you have take a look at it. But all your doors don't have to be white. You can use some creativity when it comes to your doors. So my final thoughts is don't skimp in this area. Doors do matter. Buyers look at them. Buyers notice things. Renters notice things. If you're in a high-end area, your high-end renters are going to notice things. And people are pretty savvy now. They realize that if this one thing has been done cheaply and covered up, just kind of made to work, they'll start wondering what else has been done that way. What else am I going to have to deal with? So again, not talking about Jim Morrison and the doors, but we're talking about doors for your flip properties, your rental properties, doors that can add to your bottom line. I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Be sure to check out our growing list of previous episodes on other real estate investing topics. I invite you to subscribe today and be part of our growing community. You can always find the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast. This is Scott Whitwam. Be sure to join me on our next episode of the Whitwam Wealth Real Estate Podcast, where we're wealth building through real estate.